Hi, I'm Randy Altman with Post Perspective, and we're here at NAB 2026, and this is Kevin Shaw from Colorist Society. And Kevin, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We seem to be chatting every year. NAB, IBC sometimes.
Sometimes IBC.
Yeah. So why don't you fill us in on how you feel the color community, technology, how has that changed over the last year?
Well,
I know it's a big one.
That's a big one, yeah.
Yeah.
How's it changed? Well, obviously it's a tough time, and we're seeing a lot of consolidation amongst facilities as well as manufacturers here. That I think the big news at the show is consolidation of ARRI and FSI and those things, which were caught me off guard. But in terms of colorists, I would say that we're actually getting more recognition, and that's bringing more involvement. So the whole idea of colorists being involved pre-production, talking to the cinematographer, in production or before production, rather than waiting till after editing, that's starting to get a lot of traction, and that's a huge change. And that's picked up by the IMDb news. IMDb last September, after a lot of lobbying from the Colorist Society, they finally introduced a color category. So now colorists have their own category, conform artists and so on, finishing artists, all in this color category, which makes us easier to find. And that was important. That's an important part of the kind of growth of it. And then sort of what I'm seeing at the show is that we're starting to see less of an introduction of new tools and more focus on workflow and interface and training. Yeah.
Right, because people have their tool. They're already using what they love. So is it more like is it monitors? Like in terms of workflow, what do you mean? What are they picking up on?
It's putting everything together. So like a lot of times in the past, you'd be focused on a new feature in Resolve or a new feature in Baselight, or you'd be focused on like a new camera or a new codec or something like that. But I feel like in the last year, particularly with the problems of the industry, it's all about efficiency. And it's how do we put all these things together in a meaningful way? How do we protect all the metadata so that everybody has everything, and you keep flexibility, but you don't bake it in too early. That sort of thing. So I'm trying to think of an example, but monitoring is a great example, because last year we saw the sort of early days of quantum dot OLED displays. We've still got, we've got micro LEDs, and we've got dual layer technology, and we've got all these different technologies. But that was a bit of a breakthrough, because it's the first time that we've had one technology that you can use on set. It's efficient enough to use on set. It's got all the tools, battery backup, and so on. It's accurate enough to use in the grading suite for a colorist. But it's also in the consumer and the sort of prosumer markets. So now I just saw on the ASUS stand, for example, you can buy a QD OLED display for $800. It's just like phenomenal. So that means we now have one technology. Okay, it may have differences to some of the other technologies, but at least it's one technology that everybody's going to look at, and we know that that's what people can see in the home should they have that technology. But that price thing was very important, because now finally we can start talking about HDR monitoring on set.
Yep.
How can you expect a cinematographer to shoot for an HDR finish if they can't see it? I mean, how did we learn to grade HDR? You had to have a monitor to see it on, and then you're telling cinematographers, well, trust us. Well, that's not part of the creative process. They want to be able to invest in what works really well and what doesn't work really well. How does it? Technically, nothing changed.
Right.
But from the terms of arranging the set and placing practical lights and things, that's all very different, and you can't expect them to just know that, because it is so different. It's not predictable. You've got to see it and try it and learn it, and so
Well,
that was a big
that's
change.
part of what you do too, right?
Yeah.
You're educating people to these new workflows, and you also work at Mission.
At Mission, yeah. So at Mission, I'm very responsible for, well, what monitoring do we put on set? How do the DITs react to the cinematographer? What do they tell them in terms of where their exposures are and things? How does the lab process? How does visual effects get to see what the lab did? Make sure the editors are happy with what they've got. So yeah, get involved with that at a practical level with Mission and the things that they do. And then actively training. I've spent a fair bit of time the last 2 years in China, where China's interesting because they have more money than we have in the West. So they're able to scale up with monitoring, for example, and get these great monitors on set. But they're a little bit behind in terms of the practical experience. And so they're very interested in sort of bringing over people like myself and helping them get up to speed with how to do these new workflows.
Well, you're busy and wear many hats, and Colorist Society is 10 years old.
10th anniversary this year, yeah, very
so
exciting.
Can you tell people how they could, is there an application? Like, what do they have to go through?
So there are various levels. So there's a student level and an associate level for people like editors and cinematographers. But for full-time colorists, you want to become a full member, and then you get the CSI letters after your name for the credits and things like that. You get published on the website and things. And that's easy. You just go to coloristsociety.com, click on the join header at the top, and there's a form to fill in, and it will ask for 2 references. So it's 2 references either from another Colorist Society member or from clients or employers. Basically, we need to establish that you have at least 3 years full-time professional experience. And so if you don't know anybody at the Colorist Society, that's fine. Just get the references, forward then to admin@coloristsociety.com.
Okay.
And then it all goes through.
Fantastic. Kevin, thank you so much for stopping by.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Great to see you.